On this week's episode of Faith in Politics, we're going to do part 2 of the interview with Joy Yadao on the assisted suicide numbers released by the Department of Health. So let's chat about that. Welcome back. We hope that you stuck with us, and we know that we are throwing a lot of information out at you, and this is like drinking from a fire hose. We get this. We just wanted to present to you what we have seen in the recent report. So Joy, let's talk about, so now we've had these people, we have these questions about some of the reporting, but we know we're not done with this, right? Even though assisted suicide is legal in the state of Hawaii, and we know that we believe there's some cleanup that needs to happen in the law. They're actually fighting to expand it. So what can we expect in 2021 in regards to assisted suicide?
Well, even in 2020 session, they did try to, make some movement, and there were just too many things for the legislature to consider. But what we can expect, and what we know that Compassionate Choices is striving for and lobbying for, is first of all to have APRNs be able to do this assessment and prescription.
Now, before you get into that, I want our viewers to understand this. They've heard me say this already, because when I interviewed Janet Grace Hochberg about the abortion law in Hawaii, because Planned Parenthood is pushing for APRNs to provide abortions. What I said then was that even in assisted suicide, the reason that they want APRNs to do this is because physicians do not want to do this. It has, every single time this comes up, you have a small handful of physicians willing to do it, and you have the majority of them that are not interested. They don't want to do this. They don't want to be forced to do this. They don't even want to choose to do this. It's so what's happening is there's an access problem, right? That's what Compassionate Choice thing. There's not enough doctors willing to do this. APRNs are willing to do this, so let's expand. So that's what they're referring to, right?
Right. And really personally, every time I speak with physicians everywhere, I get that same response. Well, we don't really want to do that. That's not what we went to school for. And I don't think that we should be doing that. So there has been some pushback from physicians to say that this is not the place of a physician. And therefore, from the other side, Compassionate Choices says there's a problem with access. Therefore, we need more practitioners who are willing to do this, and perhaps APRNs might, solve that problem. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what they're proposing. Also, that there may be some difficulty getting a physician on the neighbor islands, and there are more APRNs available. Certainly in big models like the Kaiser model, they use APRNs in a lot of their clinics. So, and others may do that as well. So there might be more APRNs that are available. I don't know if time will tell if that passes as to whether APRNs want to do this. It's very messy. It can lead to emotional distress on the practitioner, depending on how they feel. It could make their hospital entity force them to do it, and when they don't want to. So there's a lot of issues there. So APRNs is what they have their sights set on. So that's advanced practice registered nurses, for those that don't know that, and they can do more prescribing and things similar to doctors.
Yeah, and another,
they go to extra school, extra training.
Yes.
And I would insist that if APRNs are going to take this on, that they get proper training
now that is,
in this specialty.
Yeah, I want to be fair in this report, and I will say that the APRN as a coalition testified in support of this, so it does look like something that, now it doesn't mean every APRN is okay with that. Let's be really clear about that. But the organization itself testified in support, and I do believe that they did request that APRNs who did participate in this would have to get extra training or whatever. So, I don't want to make it sound like they're just trying to be irresponsible in this, but at the same time, it also makes it really clear that it's very hard to fight something, Joy, as you know, at the Capitol, when a group that the bill is about wants it, right? So it's really hard
Sure.
if APRN.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost any money or very little money for the
Yes.
government, then of course this is something that is easy to approve and to appease the stakeholders.
Yes, but I guess the question would be, and it's just a reasonable question to ask. So, what happens if APRNs are included, but then even they don't step up to do it? There's only a small few. What are they? I think what this shows us is they'll just go down to the next list of another group of people in order to get that access. I mean, isn't that kind of what we see happen?
Right. People might make certain clinics and they'll have clinic staff that do that, technicians. Physician assistants are actually, that has been talked about as well. They're even more highly trained than an APRN. We just don't utilize them as much here in Hawaii as other places. But there are other practitioners, maybe they'll say a psychologist can do it. If access is a problem, it's kind of like if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yes.
To them, people not doing this means there must be a problem with access.
Yeah, so APRNs are definitely something that we have to be paying attention to, because that seems to be something they want, and I think that's right. But that's not the only thing they're also that they're trying to expand on assisted suicide. What's the second thing that they're trying to do?
They're trying to get the waiting period waived. When you look at nationwide, what they've been trying to do is reduce waiting periods that they feel are too long. Hawaii has a 20-day waiting period between the two requests, and right now they're claiming that there are people who are dying while waiting, that they are actually not surviving the waiting period, and so they're asking, could we please waive the waiting period if the patient is expected to not survive the next 20 days or 20 some days, which I just find that confusing. If someone is that close to dying and they die while waiting, then maybe they didn't need it. That's just an opinion, not a fact. But it doesn't sit right with me that we have to rush the medication to people who are dying during that 20-day period. The purpose of the 20-day period is time for reflection, time to really, ascertain what's going on medically, maybe time to get on hospice, time to look at, can your problems be solved in a different way besides taking medication?
You bring up a really good point. I want to read to you a quote from Dr. Charles Miller, who is one of the physicians that has always been a very strong proponent of this law. He is a doctor at Kaiser, and he is one of the doctors that does participate in this. And so I want to read to you a quote that he gave recently and kind of get your thoughts on it, because it kind of matches what you had just brought up. He said, and he was talking about the 9 terminally ill patients that over the last 18 months died before they were able to access the prescription, right? And so he said that they, quote, died exactly the way they did not want during the mandatory waiting period, unable to access the compassionate option of medical aid in dying. Now, what I want to get your thoughts on is, so when a patient is in that active time of dying, right? And so within 6 months, right? Normally that's how they qualify. If they're within that time period, should they be suffering? I mean, should there be a case for a patient to be where they are suffering?
First of all, suffering is subjective and reported by the individual, and it is whatever the patient says it is, like pain. But there are many different kinds of suffering. So it's hard to tell about these 9 people. Were they on hospice and palliative care? If they were, theoretically, they should not have such intense suffering that they would want to end their lives. Otherwise, we're not doing our jobs. Whether you believe in assisted suicide or not, during the time when the person is alive, we should be doing our absolute best to make sure that they are not suffering.
Yes.
There are many medications, many treatments, as well as psychological and spiritual help to alleviate suffering. That is the whole job of hospice and palliative care. So if we're not doing that for those 9 people, then that leads me to question, what was their physician doing for them? Were they getting the best care available? Or were they just at home by themselves claiming to be suffering and not having any help? And that's just not good care.
No, and
anybody would want to die if they were suffering and not getting any kind of help or treatment, or people aren't listening to them and they're afraid during their time of active dying, meaning the last few weeks, that they know they're coming close and they're afraid. And if there is pain from their whatever condition that they have, that should be attended to.
no,
That's a separate issue for me, and we should do better as a state of Hawaii to make sure that we don't have 9 people suffering.
yes. And
instead of worrying about 30 people that want prescriptions to end their lives.
I think, and Joy, I think what you did is you're ending on a really good, positive call to action for people watching this. First of all, we want to encourage you to be an advocate for a family member who may be in this position in their life. First of all, you want to demand of the doctors in a nice, graceful way that pain and suffering is dealt with, and that's what palliative care is. And you have a right to make sure that your pain is managed. You have a right to do that, and you might need to be somebody's advocate. If someone in your family is suffering, then be the one to ask the questions. And if you're not getting the right answers, then ask another person, ask another doctor, get a second opinion. Nobody should be suffering at the end of their life. And I think that there are a lot of doctors and nurses like Joy out there that are fighting for people's benefit. And so be that voice for someone. So Joy, as we go out, we're going to have you back because we just totally scratched the surface. But why don't you end on speak to the people who are watching this who maybe know of somebody who's suffering, or maybe know of someone who did suffer, or maybe they're worried about someone suffering. Speak to that person right now.
The feelings that we all have when we see someone suffering, or when we anticipate that suffering is going to come, or we're suffering ourselves, those feelings are legitimate. Feelings that you just want to give up, or don't want to do this anymore, don't want to go through this anymore, those are all legitimate human feelings. We all have them at different times in our lives. We don't want to dismiss that and say that that's not true. It is true. However, there are so many different things that can be done to alleviate that suffering. Your mental outlook and psychological feelings can impact your physical body, and it can actually not allow the pain medicine to work as well because we're so worried about things. There are other medications, other ways of delivering those medications into the body, other things that we can do to alleviate that. Suffering is not something that we want to dismiss or ignore. Get involved. If someone is in your family that needs help, find out how you can get help, and demand it. Keep demanding it. Be that squeaky wheel. Be that whistle that says, this is not okay. My grandma is not doing well and we need to help her. Everyone deserves that kind of care, and there is care available. And we just need to make sure that we're connecting with the people, that we're understanding what is available, before we resort to something like, I just want to take some pills and get this over with, because it's not that easy. If you have a family member or someone close to you that is saying, I'm going to ask my doctor for those pills, what they're really saying is, my life is, just not worth it right now. I'm not able to find meaning I'm not able to connect with any kind of higher power or spirituality that can keep me going. I'm tired. I need help. It's a cry for help, just like any other suicide. And we need to step in and step up. Even if it's not someone in your family, if you'd like to help advocate for this, and make our voices heard, so that it doesn't seem like everyone in the state of Hawaii wants this. We want compassionate care, yes. We want help at the end of our lives, to have our lives be worth something and have there be meaning, and to allow ourselves to let go and die peacefully. That's the goal. Let's stick with that goal instead of trying to intervene and cause premature death for people.
Yep, and if you are someone and you have questions, then please send an email to me at Hawaii Family Forum, and I will get you plugged in to help. I will do that for you. So if you need some help, I'm also going to put the website for Hawaii's Partnership for Appropriate and Compassionate Care, and you can reach Joy through that organization. If you want to ask Joy some questions, we'll make sure that we get you the help you need. So we will see you again, and we promise we're going to do an episode on making the right end of life decisions. And Joy, if you're willing to come back, we'll have you come back to talk about that. And we thank you so much for coming and sharing your mana'o with us today.
Thank you very much.
Aloha, everybody. And don't forget, if you like this video, don't forget to like it, share it, and click that subscribe button so that you'll always be notified when we do a new episode. So mahalo, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Aloha.
It's easy to measure the needs of a terminally ill loved one in dollars or our own personal convenience.
Good morning, Mom.
But the harder measure is our willingness to abandon them to assisted suicide, cutting off the richness of their remaining days with us.
You know you're gonna have a big day today. I'm gonna run out and pick up your medicine.
We are each a part of another story, and the last chapter is often the most rewarding. Assisted suicide robs us of the very heart of Ohana.
Ku'ule, she sang a song on video for you that she really wants you to
Instead of debating the right moment to die, we should be more mindful of ways to help make every moment matter. Assisted suicide is no substitute for caring.
I am a person living with a disability. Mine is cerebral palsy. Yours might be depression or multiple sclerosis, maybe even just failing eyesight. We all live with some form of disability. Some people want to define me by my disability, but I don't. So anytime I hear someone advocate for assisted suicide, it makes me wonder if I'll be judged by others who don't know me to not have the right quality of life. Assisted suicide is still suicide, and labeling it as dignity sends a signal to anyone with a disability that not ending their life is undignified. I do not think that's the Hawaii we want to live in.
Aloha, I'm Eva Andrade. I'm the president of Hawaii Family Forum, and we've been serving Hawaii's faith-based community since 1998. What we do is we provide research and education to the faith-based community to help them understand what's happening at the state capitol and what's happening on the issues that affect the families here in Hawaii. If you would like more information, please visit us on the web. But in the meantime, know that Micah 6:8 says that the Lord requires of us to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And we can help you do that, not only to raise your voice the way that the Lord calls us to raise our voice, but to understand the issues on a scriptural basis. And we'll tell you how you can learn more about what's affecting Hawaii's families. Mahalo.